Hi, everybody. Oops, that's loud. I'd like to present myself. My name is Lawrence Saint-Onge. I'm the new elected chair of SMPTE. I have the honor to start the joint meeting with AES. It's a pleasure to have you all in the room. We're kind of like 40, 50 in the room so far. For what I can count, maybe more, and maybe more will come in. So I have a little bit of house cleaning to do since I'm chair of SMPTE, and people who've been chair before know what they have to do. So let me start with everybody that wants to see any updates from SMPTE. You can become a member or become a friend. Excuse my French. And you can see all our update in the website. Also, all the video that we posted in the website under SMPTE updates. And since we have an AES, I'll give the floor to Tony soon. Just want to talk about our next meeting. That will be at Profusion. There may be some French error, but anyway, we're going to be at Profusion meeting on November 8 and 9. We have a booth to encourage people to be a member or student, and we're going to have a winning of membership for those who register at the booth, so for 1 year. And we will have a section meeting that will take place on November 8 at 5:30 at stage B, and the topic will be mirrorless camera. And so far for the following presenter, we have Fujifilm with Bill Long, Fujifilm Canada, Senior Technical Brand Manager, Fujifilm GFX Sensor DD. We're gonna have Blackmagic also presenting, Sean Carlson, Blackmagic Design. We'll have a Blackmagic Cinema 6K and a full frame camera. And we'll have Nikon also confirmed with Chris Ogonek, Nikon Canada, Manager Product Training, with the mirrorless Z8 and Z9 camera, and how Nikon is making a push into integrating high level of video spec into more and more of its lineup. So the registration is online at this address, or you can go and finding on the Profusion website. It's in Eventbrite. So in that note, I'm not going to keep you more, and I'm going to present Anthony, the moderator for the night, and I hope we're going to have a nice discussion about audio immersive. Thank you very much. See you soon.
Immersive, yeah, I guess it is immersive. Say again? Oh, I can take this down. Oh, what else have we got here? Yeah, there's updates. Everybody's got a website. It's very important. We got students here. Put a student show, raise your hands. Okay, you're checking in. Yeah, okay, that's a good amount of good for you. You study media technology on purpose? This is a choice you've made? Okay. What brought you to media? Okay, I got 4 clusters of students here. What brought you into media? You enjoy audio, specifically audio? Okay, cool. Mostly. Okay. Go. Music? Yeah, there are a lot of musicians who get into various, everybody's a failed musician who works at like someplace. Yeah, I'm still failing as being a musician all the time. This cluster over here, yeah. And why'd you get into the media studies? Movies? Okay, all right, yeah. Speaking of movies, everybody's got a home cinema. Home cinemas, put your hands up. Oh, there's more students than home cinemas here. Just Atmos home cinemas. 1, 2. Oh, a student. 3. That's a very low percentage. Okay, this is growing. Surround sounds. Who's got attempts at surround sounds? Okay, yeah. Everybody's got. Who's got a Google Home? Okay, yes. Some other smart speakers? Other smart speakers? Yeah. Do you have them hooked up to other playout systems? Do you have like your TV synchronized to your Google Home yet? Okay, that's, yeah, right here. Yeah, see, this is happening. Who hates wires? Oh, a lot of students. Who has made a fortune putting wires in holes? Okay, so that separates the audio group from the broadcast engineering group of SMPTE members. Yeah, it's the truth of it. Like, some of us colleagues have made like small fortunes putting speakers in the air. Who sells black boxes that go in the air? Yeah, here we go. Yeah, you got speaker retailers and stuff like that. There's some motivations and there's some people that we have on this panel who are driving the technologies in that direction. And it's very important that the music industry isn't the audio industry for students, just so you know. Like there's like thousands of other facets of the audio industry that are touched by all of these playout systems. And God, people's standards just keep going up and up and up. Look, mono was good enough. Like, geez, like struggling to get this one microphone through two speakers is a challenge on most days for most people. Now we want to put it through like 64 speakers. So that's going to be, is it 64 times as hard? I don't know. I hope not. But, some of our colleagues have worked through these kind of steps and worked into these types of things. So we had one colleague who couldn't make it. We're going to try to play the video. I think the video will work, but 50-50 on the audio. Finley. So Finley and I go way back. Actually, I've learned I have connections. Like Canada's a small town when it comes to audio. Canada is like the smallest town. Everybody here knows everybody. It's kind of a weird thing. Finley and I have been in the trenches. We've done a couple of award shows. I have worked with him on a bunch of stuff, and now he is a professor here at MTU, MCU. There's so many acronyms I deal with. What's it called now? TEMU. Too much university. So I'm very proud of Finn. Finn's done some fantastic things. You're very lucky to have him as an instructor. He's well connected to everyone here in this industry. So Finley, please, welcome to the stage.
Hey, check. Hey, super team, it's great to be here. Let me just put on my slides for a second. Thank you to all the students that came. Thank you for, I pushed the wrong button. Okay, give me a second. No, it's this. Okay, give me a second. I think my tab was closed. Give me a hot second, everybody. We're in luck. Okay, so yeah, my name is Finley Braithwaite. I'm a newly minted assistant professor here at Toronto Metropolitan University, and I wanted to connect with you how we are connecting principles, practices, the craft of immersive audio to our students, particularly in the RTA School of Media here at the Creative School. All right, so we created this course, Immersive and Interactive Audio, and I promise this is the only slide that I'm going to read verbatim. But in this advanced audio course, students develop a foundation of mixing techniques for cinematic and broadcast surround formats. Moving beyond fixed channel configurations, students create fully immersive spatial audio experiences for fixed perspectives and 6 degrees of freedom. Students add a layer of interactivity, creating soundtracks that respond to the movements and actions of their audience. This course explores immersive and interactive soundtrack production for music, film, television, interactive game, and XR media applications. If you're wondering what XR is, it's really just the encapsulation of AR, VR, anything that ends with R. Great. So let's just put this into context here. So we are here at the University of Toronto Metropolitan University within the Creative School. So we have a number, 27 professionally related programs that connect to the creative arts. So think of a school of fashion, a school of film, a school of journalism, a school of photography. And you find our school here, the RTA School of Media. So RTA School of Media was formerly radio and television arts. So much has changed in the media landscape since then that we are now known as the RTA School of Media. Specifically, my course lands within the program of media production, wherein students self-select as audio production students, and they've found themselves in the tentacles of this program in the advanced level courses. So the prerequisite courses for this is actually a blend, is actually a mix. And you can come at it from one of two ways. Our students come from an intermediate audio production foundation. They are into multi-track studios. They have done dramatic narrative production. They have done music production, and they've done soundtrack, audio for video, both production and post-production. The other vector, though, that you can enter this course from is exploring virtual environments, which is actually a new media course wherein students create virtual worlds using interactive tools, primarily the Unity game engine. So this is a diagram of the overall flow of our audio curriculum. Again, this is a self-selected stream, so students are not admitted as audio production students. All students, 350 RTA School of Media students, do the introductory audio course, which is a podcast-based production course in their first year. They can then self-select an intermediate audio production course, which currently is running and has just about 80 students in that cohort currently. From there, we have a number of advanced level courses. The one we're talking about today is our immersive and interactive audio course, but there's also a music production course, a live audio production course, a post-production for film and television course, and a audio technical theory course. This all provides them options which they can choose from after their intermediate studies, then driving towards the ultimate manifestation of their undergraduate experience, the practicum thesis project. So the considerations here were really to inspire and develop competencies for them to enact a immersive creative oral practice so that they could tell stories in immersive ways using the tools that other presenters will go into more detail on, possibly. But the idea here is that they would be able to create immersive story spaces, musical experiences, using channel-based practices, ambisonics, and object-based principles as well. So it covers a lot of territory in a single course, encapsulating all the way from channel-based 5.1, 7.1 surround through to high-order ambisonics, and finishing up at an object-based approach. So we cover all of the DOFs from 3 DOF to 6 DOF, going from 3 degrees of freedom to 6 degrees of freedom by creating immersive audio experiences within game engines. A big part of this here is a concept of sustainable practice. My experience here with my own educational experience was I was exposed to all of these wonderful studios. I came in and was able to operate a multi-track studio. The moment I left, I was disconnected from the practice because I was disconnected from the apparatus and the facilities themselves. So a big part of this is the students being able to take this craft with them, take this practice with them beyond the apparatus, beyond the facilities, post-graduation, whether or not they end up at a facility that has those tools. So they develop in their previous audio courses, their introductory and their intermediate, a fairly strong and detailed appreciation of working with stereo. So they can pan things, but they can also design the width of elements. They can measure the stereo image of any material they're doing, whether it be dramatic narrative work or music work. So they develop in their prerequisite studies a fairly in-depth understanding of stereo. In this course, we hit the ground running with a refresher of stereo, but quickly move into 5.1 surround sound. So students apply the principles that they've learned and extend that, okay, along their horizon in a 5.1 channel-based context. We then flip the script and move pretty quickly into high-order ambisonics. So we allow them to create a full immersive soundtrack in a sphere of sound using ambisonics. Ambisonics parlays really nicely from their experience in stereo, because I like to think of ambisonics as mid-side, side, 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 side. Okay. So with that, we then parlay into immersive and interactive audio experiences. The tools we use for the first end of the semester, we use Reaper. We have labs and labs and labs full of Pro Tools, but we found that Reaper was a really good solution for them to activate these skills, not only on the facilities here, but in a sustainable fashion on the machines that they have in their own possession. The immersive and interactive audio work is done in Unity. So students engage with principles of immersive and interactive audio by building their first game environments. Driving the surround and ambisonics experiences is the IEM toolkit. So this is the Austrian Institute's electronic music, their tool set for all things ambisonic. And so students can activate their surround work, their ambisonic work using that toolkit. In the Unity side, we implement the Resonance game engine, the Resonance spatial audio engine. It's a little bit out of date, but it has very functional hooks for students to get an appreciation of creating dynamic, interactive, but also aurally specific game objects. This course was born during the pandemic. So the first time that this course ever run, the students were not physically here on-prem. They were at home, stuck on their laptops. And this presented an enormous challenge for us. But where can you have a class where you guarantee that all of your students are wearing their headphones? They brought them with them, and you can reliably having them listen with two cans. So one thing that is a deficit here at TMU, and Ryan McCambridge can speak to this as well, is that we don't have a functional immersive audio suite. It is something that's currently in the works. So a lot of our explorations in terms of immersive audio are done using binaural rendering to headphones. But this is coming soon. Very excited to announce that we are turning one of our traditional 5.1 mixing suites into a full 7.4.1 suite so that students can engage with these principles, practices here on-prem in a facility available to them. We are. Unfortunately, we have new consoles. Everything's going. It's going to look different. But this, Anthony brought up a good point when he was polling the room here, and he was asking, who here has an Atmos listening environment? Who here even has a surround listening environment? And going back to working on headphones, I asked this question, I posed this question to my students, and only one student sheepishly put up their hand saying that my dad has a surround system. Okay, so this is not where students are at. Students do not have these home theaters, and they do not have access to these facilities in order to work on their craft, to practice immersive audio techniques. In September of 2020, iOS 14 was unveiled, and it opened up the spatial audio capabilities of the AirPod Pros. They sell hundreds of millions of these units. I don't want to say they're ubiquitous, okay, but they're much more commonplace than the Atmos home theater, okay, or listening environment. So that's nothing to pull away anything from the cinematic listening experience, but 5.1 soundtracks came alive when iOS 14 was released, and you had your spatial earbuds in, and all of a sudden Netflix had a center speaker in front of you on your phone. It was a pretty cool moment. So with these, the latency isn't there, the head tracking is not quite there, but it's a first step in connecting these immersive audio experiences to a wider audience, to connecting them to our students, meeting them where they're at. And so the next iteration of this course will use some of the emerging tools that actually leverages the head tracking capabilities of AirPods, of the newest Sony earbuds, of the newest Google earbuds, so that students will be able to work in that space with binaural rendering in their earbuds. So you might be wondering why is there no mention here of the Dolby Atmos workflow? Why you've mentioned object-based audio, but students are not enacting that in practice in this course. And the response is twofold, in the sense that we are currently building the facilities, we're currently building the apparatus here on-prem for them to make use of that. But also the cost. Dolby will always be Dolby, and there's a cost of entry for that. And the solutions that we've come up for create a completely sustainable zero-cost model where students can create immersive audio artifacts, tell immersive audio stories without the need to invest that capital. They develop an education, an experience, an appreciation for designing audio objects in a game engine, which then parlays to the experience, it's not one-to-one, of creating a Dolby object-based audio soundtrack. That's all I've got. I'm looking forward to talking on the panel. Thanks again to Anthony and Lawrence from AES and SMPTE respectively for having me come and talk. Back to you, Anthony.
Yeah. Cheers. Awesome. Thanks, Finn. Round of applause. Okay, all right, ready? Are you guys ready? You want to see this? Okay, ready? Here we go. One. I'm not going to do that. We had a presenter who couldn't make it. We're going to present a short video of what is 14 minutes. That's short. Here we go. And then we'll have a real-life human come up and give another talk. Justin Gray has presented at a couple AES presentations in the past, and he is a mastering engineer for 5.1 Music and does a lot of 5.1 music, and now has entered into this new space. Let's call it the next generation audio. I like next generation audio. Who has heard of the EBU? EBU members? EBU? Okay, who read the EBU paper on next generation audio to prepare for this evening? Anybody read the? Okay, so there's a tech paper from the EBU, which is the European Broadcasting Union, on next generation audio. You said 2 eyes. There was 2 eyes. What were your 2 eyes? It was immersive and interactive. Okay, and they have a third eye. Does anybody know the third eye that the EBU? François Legrand, I'm looking at you. No?
2 eyes. We only have 2 ears, right?
No. There's a third one.
Okay. Yeah, so many speakers. We only have 2 ears.
There's a very important one for broadcasting. Anybody can guess the third eye? Okay, next, I'm not going to say it. You have to sit there and find it. It's the EBU tech paper on next generation audio. What is the third eye? There's a third eye. Just read it. They're going to watch a video here. This is like, haven't you ever gone to a class and like had a quiz afterwards? Okay, here, Justin Gray.
Hi, everyone. My name is Justin Gray, producer, mixing and mastering engineer from here in Toronto. And it is my pleasure to get to share with you some considerations around Dolby Atmos music productions for theatrical environments. I do apologize that I'm not able to be with you all this evening for this wonderful event, but I am going to be in New York at the 2023 AES conference, presenting as well on some immersive audio topics and soaking in as much as possible from our esteemed colleagues and the community. Thank you, Anthony, and all of the panelists and presenters tonight for allowing me to share some ideas. A very brief background on my relationship with Dolby Atmos and immersive audio. My background as an artist and producer and mixer and mastering engineer has been in stereo for a long time, but I have always been obsessed with immersive audio, specifically even just as an audiophile listening to music in surround, largely film scores, and as well as classical music. And so I have a SACD collection and DVD-A collection and listened to a lot of surround recordings here in the studio. And that informed and generated my absolute passion for wanting to express music this way, not only as a mixer and mastering engineer, but also as an artist. And so the minute the Dolby Atmos was discussed, even just whispers of it in the world about it coming to be a part of the music ecosystem, not just the film ecosystem, I was all in right from the beginning. It makes sense. It's a powerful tool for bringing immersive audio to consumers. But my background with it prior to even Dolby Atmos and to my background in relationship with immersive audio is largely based as a listener. And one of the recordings and collections of recordings that changed my entire perspective in this room listening are the Lord of the Rings box sets, Howard Shore's scores, the full cues without dialogue in 5.1. And so in 2005, those were released on DVD-A, and then these are the Blu-ray reissues. But even at a time when I was only working on stereo as a music producer, I was always listening in 5.1 also to other discs. These are more recent, but John Williams and the Berlin Philharmonic, or John Williams in Vienna, Hans Zimmer in Prague. I mean, this is the stuff that I like to listen to as a listener. And so the world of film music and the beautiful experience, the immersive experience that is possible when music is mixed in surround or above is something that has been very dear to me for a long time. So fast forward, because I know that time is not endless here. One of the first projects where I considered the idea of wanting to merge the music world and the film world is with an artist named Jonathan Kawchuk. This is a record called Everywhen, and it's a project that he composed specifically for 714, so a 12-channel delivery, a discrete channel production that involved soundscape recordings in the Rocky Mountains and a whole bunch of very, very interesting and powerful music production. We produced the music for the music ecosystem. We actually finished the record before Atmos was streamable, so we even considered some other things, but eventually got it into the streaming world and got it onto Pure Audio Blu-ray with Stefan Bach in Europe. And that was really our intent from the very beginning, was to be able to present the record in Blu-ray. But when we talked about how do we share this art with the world, how do we share this? Do we just sell Blu-ray and hope that people listen to it? Of course, that's one of the angles, but what we both ended up wanting to do was being able to use a movie theater to be able to share that immersive experience with an audience, with his listeners. And so we started down the journey of what is involved with doing that. Now, to those of you who are remixers and work on sound stages, you already know this very well, what is required. But as on the music side, we learned about what MXF is and what a DCP is and what the relationship with the soundstage and Dolby and licensing, etc. And quite frankly, his budget was non-existent. So at that time, we talked to David Ziegler and Dolby in Europe and figured out how I could bring my Blu-ray player to the projection room at the Cineplex at Yonge and Dundas. I plugged that into the CP850, changed a bunch of settings. They were not impressed when I was doing that. And got it to essentially decode Dolby True HD. And so that event, ultimately, we had about 150 people come in, screen off, and we played back an immersive 714 experience in the movie theater, and it was life-changing. I remember my good friend Alex Gamble was there, and we did some sound checks, and once we actually got it working, it was just this reminder of the power of a music production in a room of that size. When we're doing home entertainment mixing, we're working for smaller environments. We're working from anything from headphones and binaural up to about a 916 consideration and something the size of a large living area. And so the power of that, I was reminded, of course, I've experienced it with film so many times. I'm obsessed with going to the movie theater, but it was very deep. But what the most important part of all of that was not just the sonic experience. It was the idea of the community coming together to experience that immersive presentation together. When we listen to a wonderful record on our systems at home, we can connect with the music on a deep level, but there's something different about going to a live concert and being there with community, being surrounded by other listeners, by people who are experiencing something together, and the ability to bring people together to experience an immersive listening experience with the screen off in that particular instance was life-changing and deeply powerful. Everyone really connected to it, but it also created something different than just having someone listen to it on headphones or listen to it on their home cinema, home entertainment system with a couple of people. It was a reminder of what is the movie. These days someone could watch a movie on Netflix or Disney at home, but the movie theater, of course, is a high fidelity environment. It's an immersive environment. It's the greatest screen you've ever seen. But it's also about community. It's about the idea of people being in the same space, experiencing art together. That is so important and integral to my own passion of bringing music to those scenarios. The next project, and this one, I'll do a little bit of a technical thing here, but I know that time is limited. The next opportunity to bring a project to the cinema, right from the very beginning, I discussed with the artist and the label and the production team about the necessity of doing this right and not just streaming a Blu-ray in the projection room. And the reason for that is that I started to study the translation between home entertainment and cinematic listening environments. There's a bunch of technicalities that are essential, the largest being size and space, of course. When we change the size of our presentation, when we explode it, we need to consider that space and we need to mix in that space. At least we need to make final adjustments and do a remix that gets the center channel level right, that gets the LFE right, that might be some, general tonal shaping to work within the cinematic room that has an X curve on it and all those kinds of considerations that are different than home entertainment. Really, translation is the promise of Dolby Atmos, the idea that we have this one file to rule them all. There's my Lord of the Rings quoting. And yes, it is possible to have a single Dolby Atmos file sound really good on headphones all the way up to playing back at Company 3 and listening to it. And I've got many files where I've heard that. And so as I say Company 3, I sort of rewind for a second. I met Steve Foster, who's one of the senior remix engineers there. Hey, Steve, if you happen to be in the room. We met at a Universal Music event where I was presenting along with a couple colleagues on Dolby Atmos music production. And Steve came up afterwards and said, how he was interested in the world of the music mixing. And I learned about his role at Company 3, and I expressed my obsession with film music and obsession with film scores. And so we created a relationship that, and still have, that where he came here and listened to some files, and I went to Company 3 at times, and we did some translation tests and various ADMs that I would do, music-only projects of studying object and bed behavior, studying volume behavior, studying center channel behavior, to best understand how I could mix in a home theater environment that allowed for a successful remix. And this was brought to realization through a project with an artist here in Toronto named Eliana Cuevas, amazing Venezuelan singer, pillar of the world music community, and her partner Jeremy Ledbetter, who's the producer and conductor and arranger. 37-piece chamber orchestra with her full band and filmed in full 4K. And when she said that she wanted to do a cinema release, I showed her, and the team the potential of doing this in Dolby Atmos, and Alma Records and Peter Cardinelli were involved as well. And so we set up the project to not only finish it in home entertainment and to go out to streaming services, etc., but also to then set the session up and to set an efficient workflow to be able to bring that master to Steve in Company 3, and also Mike Kennedy and Mike Baskerville and the whole team there, to be able to then do a remix session for about 6 hours, reprint it to MXF, which is a high fidelity, non-spatially coded version of the master that maintains all of the object placement, that maintains all of the sonic fidelity, that doesn't have any spatial compression, which is required in Dolby True HD, which is required in Dolby Digital Plus Jock, DD Plus Jock. The MXF is essentially the master, but then authored to a DCP, which can be played back with film or without film, but it had video in this context, that can be played back in a cinema. And creating that workflow and authoring it and doing the remix and getting it right to be able to share that production in a movie theater meant a full release where Eliana got to go and host her people, 150 people or more, in the Cineplex at Yorkdale this time, and having an immersive album release with video, an unbelievable experience and a sort of a concept, like a realization that this is something that I'm obsessed with, to the degree that I actually recorded a record this summer. It's not done, but that the intent is its primary version is to release it in a movie theater. I'll be mixing top down from the movie theater experience and then considering all of the other experiences, including stereo, including home entertainment, etc. I look forward to sharing that with the community over time. But just to quickly, before running out of time here is, I'm just going to press play. And what you're seeing is, you're not hearing any sound, but I'm just going to press play and you can see some object placement and bed ideas around a cinematic experience. And really what had to happen was the Pro Tools session needed to be, and the ADM needed to be designed in a way that allowed us to easily and efficiently remix the important elements, LFE, center channel levels, groups of, essentially creating subgroups and stems in the ADM so that we could make our adjustments appropriately in the remix stage at Company 3 with Steve and the team, and then author that to MXF. But one of the things that's very fascinating about the MXF that really, from a best practices standpoint, really requires that we have this remix stage for the music projects is the idea of objects and beds behaving differently than they do because of array behavior, etc., but also the fidelity of that final master and that ability for that DCP to be decoded by the CP850 at the cinema level. So understanding that entire ecosystem is very complicated, very challenging, but once we get there, I believe that it is a huge opportunity to connect with listeners from the music side, to use these immersive facilities that exist in the film world and to pair up with the film world and to bring our worlds together to bring musical projects to consumers in an immersive environment. Because that's what the cinema does, is it brings us all together to focus on an immersive experience. It can be visual, can be just sonic, any combination therein. And so this is sort of just an overview and I guess just sharing my own inspiration for why I believe this is a powerful opportunity within the immersive world. And really, ultimately, the challenge, if we were to have to bring it down at the end to the challenges here. The challenges can be workflow based. Understanding how to bring it all the way from headphones to a cinema there's a lot of considerations. Translation. I'm working in 11.1.6 here now. I even have arrays on the side so that I can do my best to prepare things in advance, because the biggest challenge is budget. Music projects, the budgets are not endless. I know they're not in film either, but the music projects, by the time we've authored a Dolby Atmos master for streaming, the budget is usually gone. But working with artists, working with teams to look at creating sustainable ways of doing remixes, bringing them to the cinema so that we can have these cinematic experiences. And they're happening more and more. I went to a Metallica release when I was at NAMM last year, where the whole audience was just Metallica fans, and Metallica presented a record with videos in an Atmos room, and it was powerful. And so anyways, these are some thoughts and considerations. I'd love to continue the conversation. Should anyone be interested, reach out anytime. I wish you all a wonderful evening and the rest of the discussions, and thanks for listening.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you, Justin. Oh my God, this. So who's got the third eye? Francois, was that you putting up your hand for the third eye? It is the most important part of audio. It is intelligibility is the third eye of next generation audio, because you have to hear it. It's like, geez, what's the point of like having 90 different dialects and the ability to change languages if it's not very intelligible, right? So the third eye is intelligibility. You got to record it right. You got to, put the. All right. So our next presenter. Give us a second here. One of the things I want to echo about Justin and what I heard with Justin's presentation is that it's not very transportable. I like to design fireworks shows for fun, but I don't have any place to shoot them off. Wouldn't it be great to just have like a fireworks simulator? Like, that's really what these cinemas are. Like, they are like where you go to like shoot off a huge amount of sound to have an impactful experience like that. Like, it is very important that like these sometimes millions of dollars worth of speakers and infrastructure and facilities that are built for this stuff. So as a designer, as a musician, as a composer, as you'll hear, it's very important to have like a performance space, and he's not wrong about having a performance space for some of these things. All right, in the flesh, Jean-Yves. Jean-Yves is a PNG, CTO, Novaptics. Got a master's degree in electrical engineering, digital domain through a joint program between UQTR and Polytechnique de Montréal, and where further he was studying a professional MBA at HEC. He started a career in medical engineering, where he was a professor in medical instrumentation, lecturing UQTR. For the engineering faculty, as well as a healthcare hospital. He perfected his knowledge in consultant in IT and became a manager at IBM and Bombardier Aerospace, then project director for complex multidisciplinary technology projects in transportation, and finally IT. Strategic advisor, Healthcare System Quebec, good on you, could do some healthcare work. In 2015, founded Audio Hospitality Incorporated. Okay, this is cool. And returned to his first passion, audio, multimedia. Were you a guitar player? Yeah, see, guitar player. Everybody's a musician. And he got into different areas of gaming, entertainment, cinema, transportation. It is the living room of the future, and of course, healthcare. All right, sir, Jean-Yves, come on up. Let's do the video fight. Come on, let's try to get this video working now. All right, welcome. He's got HDMI. All right, start the timer. Everybody start the timer. Got to switch a video. How does this work? Finley, come on, we gotta. I push one button and the screen disappears. You pick one. Try that one. Oh, what number is it?
Sorry, what am I doing?
Switching to his laptop, which is a VGA input, secondary VGA input. Video, it's also awful. It's just control systems, though. See, I knew it. One button, screen's gonna disappear. All right, you got your mic? Yeah, okay.
Test 1, 2.
Oh, there you go. Huh? Great microphones have sound guys attached to them. All right, go for it.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to just thanks the SMPTE and the AES to provide me the opportunity to introduce you to haptics. Who have any clue about haptics? Yeah. What is your definition of haptics? Okay, cool. You're on the right track. You are going to earn this nice evening, actually. Okay, who's next? Yep.
Haptics move you. Haptics touch
Got
you.
it. I like that. It's kind of, he is specialized in marketing, actually, not in audio. All right. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Okay, so I didn't hear about emotional dimensions. It is so important these days. So we have 3 hours to cover that. Okay, let's say 20 minutes. Okay, we're going to cover what's haptics, and then the kind of haptics technology, the example of workflows from how we initiate haptics signal to the consumer that is going to experience that, choosing haptic system specifically for commercial cinema, let's say, because it's pretty broad. We can go here, there, and we'll just focus on a commercial cinema tonight. Okay, so that's fine to speak about haptics, but let's go a bit further. If we think about the somatic system, what is the somatic system? Obviously, it's getting some input from your nervous system driven towards the brain. And the blue section here, the blue area, is what we are going to talk for the next 20 minutes. It's the biggest area, actually, so it's so important. Okay. But there is the visual and there is the audio here. So there is a kind of a triangle where we have to combine those three signals together to get some kind of good immersion. Okay, if we talk about immersion, there is actually the skin that is involved, because the thing is that the skin is going to enable us to have the mechanics stimuli. If you are in contact with a motor or something that is vibrating, you can feel it, or it could come from acoustic energy that is in your environment. Second, though, there is the internal organs. It's so important because haptics and tactile stuff is about, oh yeah, I feel the touch. No, here we're talking about haptics, what we call deep haptics. So the resonance of the organs, internal organs. Then the bones, what is the thing about the bones? It's vibrating transmission. It goes everywhere in your body because of the bone structures. Okay, don't need that. Okay, what is the main purpose of the haptics actually? The only thing that you have remembered tonight is plausible physic stimuli, or if you want, feelings. Okay, plausible. This is the hard part. There is full of gadget on the marketplace. There is kind of little things that make you shake, you know, and it is haptics or a section of haptics. But the thing here, we have actually a framework on which we are building our technology. The first thing is we are considering the fact that our body gets some transmission through the floor. It's actually mechanical, or as soon as you touch something or something touch you while vibrating. The second, though, is actually the acoustic power that hit you. Everybody experiences fireworks and you say, oh my gosh, this one was really great, but you felt that. Fireworks, yeah.
I wish I had a fireworks simulator. Work on that.
We are there. Okay, and what is this actually? This is proprioceptions. Anybody knows about proprioceptions? The sense of how you feel in the space, you know? So we introduce here motions. You are going to say, oh, come on, Jean-Yves, it's motions. It's not haptics. Yeah, but there is a frontier between proprioceptions and haptics. It's in the frequency domain. We'll see that. Okay, what we're going to talk tonight, or what is applicable for the cinema, mechanics transmission that you can feel, acoustics, and then proprioceptions. What about questions? We wait for the panel, or what? I can ask myself some questions as well. Okay. All right. Okay, is there a kind of relationship between haptics and audio? Of course, that's why I'm here tonight. The thing is that both sounds, the sound is hearing from any direction actually. Sight is you see, I see about that, I see you actually. Okay, but haptics is the same ballpark actually. Haptic mechanical vibration, you can hear from quite every directions. The haptic and sound actually are some part of the spectral, they share some part of this, the bandwidth. Which bandwidth? Here is the beef. Okay. Frequency domain, this is the pink noise. How many guys are specialized in the audio here? Okay, thank you very much. The haptic zone is here. It's broader than what our body is able to intercept. The thing is that usually haptics is, you can sense haptic from 5 hertz, very big subwoofer, to about 500 hertz. Over that, there is no cells, specialized cells that can provide you with some feeling, you know. So this zone, actually, this is where we work and this is where we try to do the best in terms of high definition haptics. Now, it's very interesting because haptics could be a complement of the best audio system you can provide today. The classic concert is something between 80 and let's say 100 decibel. The rock concert or the raves and stuff like that, you know, you can pop up to 110 or something like that. The problem with the sound system today, and I got here record of the last movie that I got the time to see. I don't remember the name, but it was about an explosion, you know. And I record in the theater, not the soundtrack. I'm not interested. I'm a haptic guy. And it reached 110 decibels to provide you some feeling, you know. Gee, that was pretty loud, actually. So the thing that, is it possible to lower the audio experience in theater by introducing and complementing some haptic systems? Yeah, you can lower between 10 dBs and 16 dBs lower with exactly the same feeling actually in your body, not hurting anybody, you know. So this is one of the, what we are exploring. Actually, this is one of the benefits that we can see. The thing is that haptics is not in terms of decibel, it's in terms of 5G is the acceleration, because you get hit by a front wave or a wave front that is hitting into your body, and the special one waves is expressed in G, actually, the acceleration. Okay, now we are talking about what HRTF. Who knows about HRTF? Because I'm having kind of tracking the sound, where the sound is going, where is the scene when I'm just turning my head. So head-related transfer functions. This is a representation here, but there is an abnormality here. The thing is that 0 is just in front of me. If I turn my head, I can get the left side or the right side. And there is, of course, the attenuation of the signal or the perception here. Green and blue is less. The thing is that this person in particular here has having a problem with the ear problem on the right side, actually. That's why there is a unequal spread of the sensitivity of this person. But let's say the important thing is according to different frequencies, this is completely different, and thanks God, this is why we are perceiving the direction of the sound. This portion between, let's say, 0 and 5 hertz, this is the domain of the haptics. That goes here, you feel that in your body, but how your body is going to react to haptics. The most sensitive part is this portion. Then it starts to slower, the same thing on the head section. So we have to consider that a full haptic experience in cinema or whatever it is, it could be in theater, it could be at your super Dolby home system, you know, or it's exactly the same thing with your headphone. So the thing here is that no matter where the haptic front or the haptic signal come from, the body doesn't feel exactly that, it's coming from there. Two reasons, it's low frequency. And second reason, the haptic waves move very, very fast into your body, faster than in the air, actually. Okay, what kind of system, how could we use system in combination with sounds? It could be headphone. This is typical to the student environment with the COVID. with the haptic chairs. It could be an haptic chairs with speakers each side. You see that different car makers are featuring, kind of speakers in the headrest. And how many channels doesn't matter, actually. We don't care. Actually, we have an installation with Dolby Atmos, 64 channels, and we don't need 64 channels in haptics. It makes no sense, actually. Is there questions there? No? Okay. Okay. I could be a lecturer at the TM, Too Much University. Okay, I remember. Okay, motor, electric motor with an eccentric mass. So when it rotates, it starts to shake, So where do you think you see that when you are driving? There is a couple of cars on the marketplace that having that installed in the steering. If you just move a bit out of your lane, the steering starts to shake. This is kind of an haptic signal, okay? There is the LRA, which is the linear resonance system. This is a kind of a speaker, but there is no cone, actually. They put in place a mass, the mass vibrates, and then boom, you get a vibration on a specific axis. Then there is the piezoelectric, which is something that is thin, not powerful. It's very interesting to put that at your fingertip, wearing an haptic glove, for the instance. We are not there. There is special people that are using a lot of those techniques for active haptics, which is haptics with the feedback, actually. Surgery are using that with robotic to feel the scalpel pressure that they are applying at distance. If it fails, good luck to the patient. Sorry. Okay. Here is the basic system. There is a source. We are decoding haptics, driving, and there is the transducers. Pretty basics. Now, where are we actually? There is image, there is clock frame, there is the sound tracks, there is the haptic tracks. Actually, forget about the image and audio for a while. The thing is that the haptic track, there is a bunch of silly guys on the planet that I'm high on, and then we are looking for how to coding the haptic tracks along with the audio and the haptics and streaming everything together. So we're working and presenting something to the MPEG community, okay? So actually we're working on different codecs, the ISO, the Dash for streaming. This one is for specific from Apple, immersive audio, HD, with this up to 6 DOF that we heard a couple of minutes ago. And then the rest is pretty equal. The thing that we have to understand is the haptic mode, we have to push the metadata because there is so much scenario about haptics systems that we have to push. Here is what we are going to send you. The decoder is saying, okay, here is my capability in terms of renderer, send back JSON specs to see to the source, tell the source, no, I don't need everything. I'm a basic haptic system. Just send me a couple of channels and it's going to be all right. My specs, my limitations are there. It's really complex, actually. And then you have to push that toward the transducer. Basically, the HD haptic is defined as having a bandwidth of 5 Hertz to something like 500 Hertz, less than 1% of a distortion. Then the response time have to be faster than 10 milliseconds. The organization, the haptic organization is asking for 0 to 3G. Your transducer should be able to push an acceleration of 3G. Uh, we are at 5G actually, and 5G allow you to simulate 130 decibel. So if you have a movie like Maverick or something like that, and you just attend the rush of the airplane just being launched, you are going to feel like being there actually. How many of you just attend the little demo before this conference? So I don't know what you got as a content, but there is content that are really subtle. Pouring rains, you can feel the rain. Or if there is a blast the Fury cinema or movie, you can feel the shot, you know. And this is pretty interesting. Actually, we are dividing the body in 32 channels. I could spend hours and hours talking about that, but let's say that it's like at your butcher, you know, you select the part you want and that's it, okay? We can emulate and send you this kind of a precise zone and stimulate that. Okay, now we have to go further. We have to talk about ambiohaptics. We heard about ambionic. We heard about binaural signal and reproductions. Here in haptics, we are calling that ambiohaptics. This is kind of a HD plus haptics. And then actually what we do, we in real time, we get the soundtracks, we hash them very high, with a high rate. We push that into a DSP, and then inside 10 milliseconds, it's back and it's been completely transformed into haptic signal, you know, that makes sense according to the power of the audio, you know. And then we can mix that with the haptic tracks that are going to be available probably in 2027. So we will start to hear about games that can push through streamings haptic signal on their own channels aside the audio, etc., etc. Almost finished. The infiltrator specific topology system, there is the sound, because it's our main source. No matter what it is, Euro, Dolby, IMAX, whatever, we just take that, and there is different ways to tap on the sound, and then what we get, we process that through the audio conditioning. There is a special conditioning algorithm, and then the haptic DSP algorithm, which are proprietary. We spent 5 years because the first month we thought, hey, my gosh, it's really easy to do haptics. We just connect that to an audio amplifier and let's rock. It goes really good. And we start to say, oh my gosh, the problem with basic haptic is that all the chairs here that are haptic chairs, imagine that they start to sing because the haptic is leaking within the audio spectrum, you know. Come on, the audio guy would just get mad about that. So the haptics must be absolutely silent, minus 40 dBs, to allow the audio system to do its job, and the haptic doing its own job. There is delays because everything has to be blended perfectly to give your brain a chance to say, it's plausible. Almost finished. What are you expecting actually? If you are a consumer, you can choose between having a motion, a chair that rocks, you know, with some kind of a haptic stimuli, a localized physical stimuli. This is not on the marketplace. Oh, no, Jean-Yves, it's not true. There is vest that you can wear and you can go with your computer in the back and you get shot and everything, you feel everything. Yeah, but could you imagine that in a theater, in a in a commercial cinema. It's not practical, not actually. There is the sound reinforcement. We can install big motors at the base of the seats, and everything start to rock. And you see that at Disney World and stuff like that. Somatic and biohaptic stimuli or simulation. This is where we are a bit crazy. We want people to experience something that. I gave you a story at the Le Cap in Quebec City. There is a brand new cinema with this kind of haptics installation. And people, they have no idea that there is haptics underneath there on their seat. And people, we conduct a survey, and people told us, we were saying them, okay, how did you find that? They said, find what? The experience? Oh, yeah. The audio system is so unbelievable that we thought that we were inside the movie, Okay. And curiously, it was not loud. I don't understand why. Mission accomplished. Clack, clack. The worst thing you can have, it's haptics that get in front of everything. It's kind of stupid thing. Your brain is going to say, hey, time out. 10 minutes after, it's going to be a fatigue being in place, actually. On the cinema owner, of course, the system has to be TCO acceptable, total cost of ownership. The reliability has to be there, low maintenance, managed through the current program, because everything is programmed in a modern cinema. So it has to be embedded into the programming machine. Invisible to cinema operations, it just works. You don't have to care about that. Return on investment, the thing is that why to spend money on haptics if it's just good for having some feeling with Blockbuster? Why not having haptics that is enhancing every kind of movie? This is our goal, actually. Not interfering with the sound, you remember? Who knows, I'm finishing with that, who knows about. Okay, we have a couple of sound specialists here. What is the definition of a crosstalk? Crosstalk is the signal that goes in the second channel side, okay? So crosstalk in stereo, you see that if you are putting a signal on the left channel and you pump up the volume, you will finish by having a bit of the signal on the right channel. This is crosstalk, okay? There is crosstalk for the owner of the cinema. You all experience that. You are listening to your preferred movie, and boom, 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 you start to hear a big sound from the room, the neighborhood beside you. It has completely nothing to do with your movie, but it's kind of oh my gosh, what is this? So the crosstalk, we can zero the crosstalk between two rooms in the cinema installation. Okay, here there is a lot of consideration between those different haptic systems, and there is what I would suggest if you are interested in this kind of subjects, we can go with the panel and say, oh, there is a couple of questions about that, which are absolutely, the only thing here is you have to sit in the cinema and say, is it realistic? My brain is okay with the experience I have. What about the comfort? Is it interesting for 10 minutes and after a while I'm saying, okay, it's enough. Or is there a wow factor because this is the way you are going to bring your customer to the cinema? Is there fatigue, or is it going to be convincing and not in front of? And is it good for all movies? Okay. Is it a lot of investor in the room? Okay. Last one. Okay, motions, it's been here for 30 years actually, with some, and you know already some cinema that have rocking chairs and stuff like that. The localized physical stimuli that is going to cover your 32 body zone is going to be probably around 2030, something like that. The sound reinforcement, it's there. This is the motor that you shake the, everything, you know. And there is the somatic haptic that is pretty new, because the companies like us that are working on that, we spend the last 5 years on it. That's it, that's all. Thank you very much.
Let's try this one. There's a question here. Yeah, go. You still have a microphone.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, into the mic.
Because of the spectrum of the haptic signals, 5 hertz to 500 hertz, can you just use a simple Pro Tools system or something like that to create the content and to mix it down?
Yeah, it's just part of everything. It's just picking up sound and making it shake.
The beauty about that solution is that it's complex, transforming sound into haptics. But the beauty of that, you have sound guy at the mixing console, and they can add tracks, and they are seated on the haptic seat, and they start to balance everything at once, you know. You got it.
So no real additional hardware required other than the transducers? Nope.
Yeah, but there is distribution system for, let's say, amphitheater of 5, 10, 100,000 seats. There is distribution system, but basically DSP, rack mount DSP haptic, and that's it.
We got another question back there. Sorry, I'll repeat the question for the people online. Oh, he's running for it.
Thank you. So in terms of just open world video games, if you were to integrate haptics into that, I was wondering if like there's some sort of procedural sort of technology that would be used to determine haptics within an open world, or how would that work with video games and open worlds?
Okay, there is an engine and editing software for the gaming. All the gaming engines are able to add some tracks, and if you want to get very specialized, you go with what is the name of the company? It's a company that just push the envelope and give you a lot of so the basic system, if you are developing a new game, as soon as you get sounds, very basic sounds, you can get haptics out of it. This is what some of you experience at the gaming hub, right at the end of the corridor. It doesn't take anything, but we can push the envelope with something that is very, very more complex. But basically, your brain is going to say, wow, this is quite a difference, and we'll see for the future.
Okay, so I'll dovetail off of that. Again, you talked about some data flows and data flow versus metadata. Like here, you're talking about extracting for audio sound and converting it into data and then doing things. Is there anything that is EBU, like next generation audio? Are you pursuing a SMPTE standard for this data transmission, or what is that DCL? Again, you called it something. You had a name for it. What is that data transmission like? Is there an end game within SMPTE make that a standard of some sort?
Actually, we're piggybacking our system on the existing format, no matter how many channels, no matter the codecs. So we just tap on the audio system and we just decode. We're decoding real time the audio system. So the audio signal, sorry. So there is no special feature that we have to connect on the BNC 5001 and kind of complex stuff. We are looking, however, for those stuff, but let's say it goes very, okay. The only thing I should mention here, we were having a nice experience with the basic stereo audio channels. Then came the surround decoders, and then came the binaural Dolby Atmos, which they don't have at the gaming hub here. So those that just experienced that, that was the basic stereo feed, you know. But as soon as you put Atmos binaural for the headphone, my gosh, it's completely another thing.
Yeah.
It's a step that is incredible. So what you heard, it's nothing. At the point where into our chest now we have a decoder for binaural specifically tuned for the haptics. This is not what you got, but
We got a couple of questions here. We got 7. Well, hold on, folks. Okay, we got one more presenter, and then we have a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, who has the most important question? Okay. Sorry, student.
So because you're taking advantage of like the strata sensory system, for like long listening periods of time, do people habituate to the haptic feedback?
Ooh, do you habituate to the haptic feedback is the question.
okay, we did. Okay, our systems were implemented for e-sport games and tournaments that can last 10, 20 hours. People just go for a pee and get back and play again, you know. Nobody complained about the comfort being just too much immersion. It's
Like you don't get like bum fatigue from too much bum vibration.
No,
or anything like
this
there's no
is our
studies about that
checklist,
yet.
and no fatigue, you know.
Okay, well, thank you very much, sir. We'll come back to a panel, and thank you very, very much. Grab your laptop so nobody steals it, but cheers. Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to bring up Paul Novotny at age 5. Paul found the piano, the piano sound mesmerizing. Was it just like the piano? Like, did you like just poke your head into a piano and like get lost in the sounds that a piano? Oh, I was gonna. My thing about crosstalk was gonna be a sympathetic vibration, sympathetic or it's like a sympathetic vibration. Speaking of pianos, journey began into music, of course. During high school, Paul played bass, drums, piano, trombone. Attended 2 Stan Kenton jazz workshops. He graduated with a major in graphic arts in the Hall of Honors of the Thomas A. Stewart Secondary School. This was the first sign of his interdisciplinary approach to the arts. At 17, Paul began formal music study at Humber College in Toronto, and at 19, he was invited to play bass at the Brian Brown Trio. Brown was the 1974 Canadian Songwriter Award winner. Paul began performing, and with him 5 nights a week while learning repertoire from the Great American Songbook. 2006, Paul began leading his own ensembles, releases jazz duo recording titled Look Ahead with Robbie Botos. Again, high def, very high def stuff. Surround sound versions also distributed in Germany. It's always high def surround sounds big in Germany, obviously. So there is highresaudio.com. I hope you speak about that too. German magazine Audio Test declared Look Ahead to be a diamond of modern sound and referred to Paul as a highly doped Canadian bassist. So here's Paul. Let's get your audio and video. If it's just video. Okay, thanks, Paul. All right, come on. Let's try this one. Oh no, we did. We got this one.
Okay. Does it work?
Yeah, partially.
Okay, so we're plugged in. Yes.
There we go. Check. All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for that introduction, Anthony. To get going, I thought it would be good. let's just kind of look at our community here in the room tonight, and let's situate ourselves with regards to the AS and the EBU. Bottom line is, my brother is George Novotny, and he's the guy who inspired me at a very young age to take music and sound very seriously, and that is my dope. So when I was telling George on Sunday afternoon that I was doing this, he reminded me of how Toronto has been an innovator in film and television for the years. And so I thought today, this is a last minute add in before my presentation actually starts, I'd like to just basically inspire, hopefully, the students that are in the room and let you know that you're amongst people who are all innovators here tonight. Jean-Yves' presentation was fantastic, but our community here in Toronto has led the industry. So tonight we're talking about immersion, but 50 years ago, what was happening in Toronto at Miraphonic Sound was the first premiere of the Magnatech electronic high-speed interlock. And so I'm not going to get into that too much, but the bottom line is this was a high-speed rewind system in feature films so that when they were working on a reel, if they had to go back and do a punch in, they didn't have to wait for 20 mag dubbers to roll back in real time. They could roll back 10 times as fast. This technology was tested here in Toronto, first implementation in the world, and my brother George was the remix engineer on that film session. So that got written up in the SMPTE journal, and the bottom line is I put some names up there: Ray Cook, Ron Lynch, George Novotny, Dave Appleby, Bill O'Neill, and Finley Quinn from Miraphonic Sound and Quinn Labs. These were the innovators 50 years ago in our community. And the crazy thing is, if you only back up another 50 years, there was no sound with picture. So for everybody who's talking about video games and doing everything that we're doing here, we got to understand that when we're talking about haptics, we're talking about something that is just unbelievably forward thinking. Okay, so let's appreciate what we're learning. That's why I wanted to say that. So anyway, you might be wondering what it is that I have to say about immersive audio. Well, this is what I started working on over the pandemic. Bottom line is, through my brother George, I've mixed a lot of television and film over the years. I've been a bass player. I have worked for years in studios, and I really wanted to participate in Dolby Atmos, but I also know it's very expensive, but I honestly believed there was another way. As it was mentioned earlier by Finn, Dolby is Dolby. But this project seeks to break down the gatekeeping of what a Dolby Atmos studio costs and what it can do. And I'm going to tell you tonight what it is that I have discovered. I'm a PhD student at York University. I'm actually a candidate and very close to finishing. And bottom line is, this is a good deal of my research. So this is a case study. And what I sought to do is establish the philosophy and benchmark for what I call a hyper near field Dolby Atmos tiny studio. I sought out very diverse references because Dolby didn't really condone this or offer me very much to be able to solve this problem. The studio use, I'm an independent creator, I'm a sole operator. I work on commercial, artistic audio, music composition, mix and master. And the key questions around my work are, is a hyper near field tiny studio viable? By how much and where can the Dolby Atmos best practice be adapted? What are the essential tools, components, and specifications? Where are the economic differences between a near field and a hyper near field Atmos room? So the methodology gathers information that's necessary to innovate a novel hyper near field Atmos classification. A tiny studio classification aims to augment the conventional sizes of near field, midfield, and far field. So, tiny studio. Have you ever heard this term before? I really started thinking about this. It's inspired by the global tiny home movement. So, some of the values are large scope within a small scale, environmental sensitivity, buy local, premium components. Challenges. The Dolby Home Entertainment Studio Certification Guide does not describe or encourage room sizes below 50 cubic meters. And the tiny studio takes that right on the nose and challenges it. Aims to prove it can work. What are the tools? Well, you have to start with the Dolby Audio Room Design tool. I found a nice little app called Clap IR for measuring reverb time, RT60. I worked with REW, Room EQ Wizard. Some people work with Smart, I didn't. I'm currently now working with SonarWorks to tune the room within my merging technologies Anubis. I have a very good quality SPL meter. Most importantly, a tape measure. And also premium materials for soldering, wiring, and connectors, of which I did all of those things to build this studio. So what are the hyper near field attributes? Well, the room, because it's so small, is physically very well correlated. It's got an economical dynamic range, can work at 79, 82, or 85 dB, plus 20 dB for true peak. It can meet NC25 noise, basically the floor of the room. My noise floor in my little room in my basement is about NC20, so it betters the Dolby spec. My reverb time, RT60, is short, but I have deduced that this is a very effective space for judging Atmos audio mixes for small car cabin. It's very good for single sub bass management, which gives you strong mono bass. And the thing that's really great about a short RT60 is that minimal electronic room correction is needed. Essentially, the cost, though, this is what we all really want to know. You know, Dolby is Dolby. I was able to do this room for between $50,000 and $80,000. Now, why would I think this could even work? Well, there's lots of great examples of role models for very hyper near field studios as mobile studios. So if they can do it here, I mean, look at here, we have a little drum kit set up in an RV. I don't know if Walter White will be joining that though. But here is really what it is that we're talking about. These are the main things that I really discovered. Okay, so the tiny home equals tiny studio. It's a concept, it's an architectural and social movement that advocates downsizing, buy local, light environmental footprint, large scope, small scale, premium quality, and simplification. So if we apply all of those things to building an Atmos control room, what do we get? Well, here, this is a diagram of what I'm dealing with. My ceiling height is under Dolby's. It's at 2 meters. My width is 2.44 meters. My length is 4 meters. Believe it or not, my speaker to mix distance is 1.2 meters. The wattage of the studio ranges from 1700 watts, where it's at right now. I could easily take it to 2200 watts. It relies, absolutely essential, you must work with a rectangular room geometry, and one of the biggest things that you got to do is put the door to the room in the very middle at the back of the studio and leave it open, because it becomes an amazingly good bass trap which solves standing waves. Now, the other thing that or at least helps solve them considerably, one of the things that I also, that gave me confidence that this could work is an average home size compared to a tiny home. The tiny home is approximately 75% smaller, but people live in these homes and they are able to do what it is that we do in larger homes. I'm only asking that this studio basically be 50% smaller than a Dolby near field studio. So 50 cubic meters is the smallest size that Dolby recommends for their Atmos room. And my room is 24 cubic meters. So here you can see I got into the weeds. This is deep COVID, soldering, tape measure. The room was just pulled apart. You know, this used to be a 5.1 room for about 10 years, and I mixed tons of television shows, and the album Look Ahead was mixed and mastered in this room before it became an Atmos room. And so I had very good confidence that the project was going to work somehow, and I decided to document how. So here's the interesting thing though. During the pandemic, the growth of Atmos installations has increased significantly. In 2020, Dolby reported that there were just 30 studios worldwide to playback or work in Atmos. In spring of 2022, we were at nearly 200 music mix rooms worldwide for Atmos. And now Dolby is saying that there are about 600 Atmos rooms. That's a 1900% increase. People are building Dolby rooms everywhere. So, DART. Has anybody heard of it? You know what it is? Of course you would, because you're a genius. Bottom line is that this is what you've got to know going into it. You do not want to be building a Dolby Atmos room until you build it virtually in DART. So you're going to get your studio name, your layout type sorted out, your room and speaker dimensions. You're going to choose your calibration level, and you're going to choose your equipment, all virtually. DART will know about your speakers, and what it will do is it will tell you whether or not you're building a room that's going to work at whatever level you decide to work at. And 79, 82, or 85 are all acceptable for music. Primary data will involve your floor plan, elevation measurements, proposed dimensions, and location orientation of the speaker array, your RT60 measurements, your NC25, and most importantly, your distance from speakers to mix position. Now, I want everybody just to remember this. This is the reason why a hyper near field room can work. So here's the comparative. I'm just going to come around so I can see this. You can see the difference between, am I in anybody's way? I'll sit down here. You can see the difference between the Dolby Near Field and my Hyper Near Field. So there's the benchmark specifications. Minimum layout height. So when we talk about layout, we're talking about the speakers, okay? So Dolby would like you to have 2.4 meters from floor to center grill of the speaker. My tiny studio is only 1.75. Minimum layout width, what they want is 3 meters. I'm at 2. Minimum layout length, they want 3.5 meters. I'm at 2.4. Recommended room volume, 50 cubic meters. I'm at 24 cubic meters. But the big one is speaker distance to mix position. They want 4 meters. That's about 12, 13 feet. I'm at 1.2 meters. And that's why you can build a Dolby Atmos room economically, because it costs a ton of money in amplifiers and speakers to move sound at 85 dB with 20 dB true peak 13 feet. So the basics are, choose one speaker brand. For the tiny studio, you got to use passive speakers. They've got to be tonally balanced, and the ones that I chose to work with are Canadian made, and they're PSBs, and they measure out at about 87 dB sensitivity. Mixed size is okay. You want to find a speaker that is light and easy to mount on the ceiling. You need economics, like good economics with high efficiency, and as I said, right now I'm at 1700 watts within a 2-meter speaker array radius, but I probably will take the studio to 2200 watts. Because it's so small, the speaker array can be highly correlated. There is a minimal amount of electronic room correction required. Amps and hardware must be placed outside of the studio to provide low heat, low noise, and also because this is a tiny studio built on tiny home principles, we want to find ways to be environmentally friendly. So low daily power consumption is something that I considered. And I want this room to be comparatively very economical to a near field. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but this is what this is what the actual interface of Dart looks like. And so you've got to populate all of these figures. It's a well thought out Excel spreadsheet that does all sorts of calculations and tells you whether or not you're in spec. And you can see with those pink areas, that's where the room is out of spec with Dolby. There's all of this stuff that gets populated. You can see there's RT60 up there. Dolby has all sorts of great videos for you to learn how to operate this spreadsheet. Okay, all Atmos rooms require 3 chains, and so let's understand them. You got your A chain, which is software, your B chain, which is hardware, and I'm kind of coining this third chain, our QC chain, and that is the chain where all independent audio makers go, oh my gosh, I had no idea that after I've spent all this money on the A and the B chain, I still have to spend all this money on the QC chain. So the A chain, computer system, Dolby Production Suite, DAW, plugins. I'm using Virtuoso from Huddersfield University, from the APL Labs for my binaural renderer. It's excellent. So that goes in the A chain. The B chain, I'm working with Merging Technologies equipment, Anubis and Happy. I chose PSB speakers for my Atmos speakers, but I also have a set of ATC SCM20 ASL Pros, high performance mastering speakers for checking things in stereo. And I do still work a lot in stereo, and stereo factors large into the workflow of Atmos. I just want to say one thing. I worked with Paul Barton directly. He was an advisor on this project, and Paul is the engineer who essentially designed PSB speakers, and his mentor was Dr. Floyd Toole. I don't know if anybody in this room knows of Floyd Toole, but he is the guru worldwide with regards to loudspeakers and rooms. And these PSB speakers function beautifully in this format. They sound really comparable to the ATCs, very close actually. I'm using 6 ART SLA 100 power amps for the satellites. I would actually like to take those power amps. I would love to make them Brystons, believe it or not, to buy local, stay with the Canadian made, get a little more power into the satellites. The speakers that Paul chose for me will take more power than 100 watts in each channel. Now I'm using Grado RS2 large cup reference series headphones and AirPod Pros for my binaural references. They work really well. The Grados, I've used them for over 20 years. Gary Gray mentioned them to me. Lovely, lovely headphone. I don't personally feel the need to spend $6,500 on, a set of electrostatic headphones. These work really well. Maybe I'll change my mind. The QC chain, I'm not using an Arvis. An Arvis is a very high-end sort of decoder for Atmos. So I'm just using a Tone Winner AVR with Apple TV right now, Apple M1 MacBook Pro, and I also have a system with loopback on my Mac OS so that I can actually feed music directly out of Apple Music directly into Pro Tools or my speakers. So, and Warren Beck, who has also been a great advisor on this, he's building me a D-sub I/O switcher, which will allow me to switch from mic pre's to the AVR in for monitoring of music and audio, movies, etc. So let's look at Brian Pennington's sort of basic best practices. I'm not going to read all of this, but I've put in red what I think should be the important takeaways. What he says is, building an Atmos room that's too big can be extremely problematic, but we don't know from Dolby how small you can go. So that's what this project does. The Tiny Studio now tells us exactly how small you can go. And for any independent audio creator or a music creator, this is the question we need to ask. The room has to be rectangular, long axis orientation to prevent loading the room with standing waves. From Brian Pennington, Atmos works with all speakers and price does not denote quality. So don't be thinking that you have to go out there and buy a whole room of ATCs. You know, you can do it a lot less expensively. You need a very good meter with A and C weighting, slow and fast response. When you tune your room with pink noise, you do this at 75 dB C in the slow mode. Here's the interesting thing. Brian Pennington says, make the sub 5 to 6 dB louder than the center channel. And you know what? That's a really kind of ballpark way to do it. I was working on a project with Frank Maroney and Amin Batia, and we were moving Amin's project back and forth between rooms, and we were always just kind of guessing at the sub level. That feels pretty good. Da, 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 da. Right now, I haven't got anything for you on it, but I am working on a really, really tidy way to align the sub. And Anubis has some features in it that have just come out that make this possible. So I'm writing that up and still doing tests on that. So I aim to break that down on what Brian is suggesting there. One thing that we all have to understand, you want to work at a common level when you mix in Atmos that helps you to innately arrive at minus 18 LK-UFS, which is our reference level for Atmos. Here's a special note about RT60. Basically, too much reverb time in a room can lead to the smearing of nodes that are unrepairable with electronic EQ. And that tells you why the Tiny Studio does not need an awful lot of electronic EQ, because it doesn't have smearing, because the reverb time is so short, being is so small. So, but when you mix, you have to be careful. Too little reverb time can lead to virtual reverb disappearance in your space, and then only return when you get to a bigger space as too much reverb in the mix. Okay, the other thing is he says, try to adhere to the Dolby Atmos room curve, music or cinematic. They're slightly different curves, and they're detailed in dark. My room is not using these curves. Many practitioners, I know Justin does not use this curve. They'll have more testing to do on that. I don't feel the need for it for music mixing, to be truthful. So let's break down the economics. Here's where the rubber meets the road. Near field, look at the cost of those speakers. And this was all computed using Dart. I did a virtual near field build, and these are prices from the Long & McCrae Pro website as of last August. Okay, so look at this. This is a much more balanced way to spend your money in hyper near field. Look at the difference. If you add up the 3 passive loudspeakers plus the 2 active loudspeakers, you're nowhere close to that. Okay. Let's do an economic comparison chain by chain. So you can see that the B chain is the most expensive chain of an Atmos room. But look at the difference between the B chain in a hyper near field room compared to a near field room. It's a significant saving. There are a couple other things you might want to get if you're building your own Atmos room, especially if it's a hyper near field room. The PSI Audio AVAA C214 active bass absorber for almost $6,000. The Audi's CRBN electrostatic headphones at $6,142. The Trinov, some DIY sort of homemade diffusers. Those are good things. But you can actually, if you want to go crazy, put about another $26,000 on top of the price that it is that I suggested for a hyper near field. All right, I'm wrapping up now. Tiny Studio conclusions. It's a highly correlated speaker sphere. There is good dimensional separation between the height and standard plane, even with a low ceiling height. Don't be afraid of that. High dynamic range in SPL is achievable. Passive speakers with amps outside studio, lower studio temperature. The noise criterion it must be low. When you basically use passive speakers, it's easy to repair. You're not hauling a bunch of power amps out. You can just throw another speaker up while the one would be in for repair. They're light, they come down and go up quickly. As I said, I would argue that a small hyper near field studio space is an excellent space to review automotive cabin Atmos. And when you have a low RT60, the room will respond very, very well to electronic room tuning. Now, standing waves. This is the elephant in the room. This is the one that I really had to think about. First off, pay very close attention to what Dart says, where you place your sub. The choice of sub is really important. The sub that Paul Barton recommended to me was a PSB sub. It's a 10-inch speaker that is in a cabinet that is 4 inches deep. Has anybody ever seen a 10-inch speaker that's 4 inches deep? I said to Paul, how the hell did you do that? He said, it was easy. I put the magnet in front of the cone, and it won him a 2020 Tech Award. And it sounds great, but you have to use his PSB amplifier with that sub. So that is a big part of the success with regards to the standing waves, because you can get it right up against the wall. Dart told me that if I had it just 18 inches out or 12 inches out, the standing waves were like out of control. As soon as I moved that sub just horizontally, exactly right, and right against the wall, they tamed. I don't know why, but they did. And Dart told me that, and I paid close attention to it. So, rectangular room, we've talked about. Rear door bass trap. In the latest firmware of the Anubis, merging is now using the Lynkwell Riley crossover, and it crosses over for bass management at 80 hertz. And I use a single sub. And basically, the reason why is it creates really solid mono sounding bass. I'm tuning the room using SonarWorks installed into Anubis. Now, I tried SonarWorks as a plugin on my DAW, and I hated it. I could hear phasing. I could hear problems. I would not use it that way. I bought the reference mic from SonarWorks, bought the multi-channel version of it, put it into the Anubis, and I couldn't believe how well it worked. And it might be because Anubis is using 334 bands of Pyramix EQ, believe it or not. That's an insanely powerful way to deal with room tuning. The other thing, the whole top end above the Schroeder frequency. I know I haven't talked about that, but you might want to look at that up if you don't know about the Schroeder frequency. Essentially, it's the center point between diffusion and absorption in any room. But below 600 hertz is where I needed to tune the room. Above 600 hertz, it was good. Didn't really have to do anything. It was a pretty diffused space because of bookshelves and all sorts of other things. But this tuning and all of these things kind of added up to basically render the standing waves innocuous at mixed position. And let's be really clear, a small hyper near field room is ideal for a music institution, for a professional studio that needs a small Atmos room, for independent music makers. This is a classification of Atmos room that I believe Dolby is going to have to pay attention to, because it's going to bring non-headphone Atmos to a lot more people. And believe it or not, I just sent Emma at Dolby my paper. There's a paper going to be published on this project in Rutledge Academic in February 24, because I presented this in Innovation in Music, a conference in Stockholm, Sweden. So this is on their radar. Bottom line is that the merging technology, I think, is central to a hyper near field room. It's a small room. I don't have room for a mixing board. And the Anubis, if you have not seen it, you must look at it, because it is a powerful, powerful box. It's a game changer for easy operation, premium sound quality, large scope I/O, and a lot of expandability. The weakness in, okay, I'm going on and on. I'm almost done here. But I'm excited for this. I think it's, oh, really? Okay, all right. I thought you were giving me my, the cane. As Lothar used to say at the Montreal Bistro, turns the damn cell phones off. Anyway, I'm dating myself. The weakness with a hyper near field Atmos room, it's a 1 to 2 person mix position. You know, it's not company 3 with a 10-foot wide sweet spot. We've got about a 2 to 3 foot wide sweet spot. 2 people can monitor fine in this room, but it's really ideal for just single sole operator work. The bottom line is that music business economics these days make an Atmos room really hard to justify. Impossible, actually. But I will say, did anybody read that Apple has just decided that they're going to have a new revenue stream tier for Apple for Atmos mixes? Just came out a day or two ago. They're going to pay higher royalties for Atmos mixes. And the other thing that I find fascinating too is they've also said that they will not playlist your mix unless it's in Atmos. Yeah, gatekeeping, that's what we're trying to pull down, right, with all of this. The other problem for all of you independent music makers, audio creators, there's a giant learning curve on all this. There's a significant investment of time, energy, and money. But that's what my paper is here to help you guys with. You'll be able to read this and you'll be able to pay attention and start to plan your own studio. So what's the outcome of this case study? I'm presenting the philosophy and the benchmark for a durable and adaptive premium solutions that account for music business economics, environmental, and socioeconomic context, which every day push the independent music sound practitioner to do more with less. And here are some acknowledgements for my work. I have talked with a lot of people around the world about this, from Sweden, from the UK, et cetera, and I want to thank all of them. I'll just mention this, that Taylor Francis Publishing has reached out to me, 2 commissioning editors, and they are asking me to write a book about this project because they believe this is one of the hottest topics that they could publish. I'm still deciding. So here's a couple of images of the studio. That's what it looks like from the mixed position. There's deep COVID work, putting all this stuff. There's the sub. See, look at that's the sub. That little 4-inch box. It's such a. I use the word gracile. I don't know how to say it, but it's a really beautiful sub, and it sounds really good. You can see the ceiling speakers, fantastic mounting brackets that Paul Barton designed for those. There's the 6 ART power amps. Designed a patch bay, which I soldered with EDAX and everything. There's all of the. I was really lost in COVID with all of this. Yeah. So anyway, there's some of the stuff, and that's what I got for you today. Hope you enjoy. Thank you. Yeah, any questions?
Yeah, here. Yeah, comment?
Yeah, I saw that you know Ron Searles. I do. And so I spent a lot of time at his mastering.
Sorry, I shut it off.
I've lined up his room, and it's my new heroine. Atmos in a small room is the way to go. I agree. So what you've got here, I think, is something that's very important, that's really going to take the world by storm, because doing this in a small environment, as you say, it makes it so much more affordable. But it just sounds so much better than a big theater. And I've listened to large theaters throughout the city here. This is the way to go. So congratulations. I want to invite you over to my place and live by a Danforth so we can come and have a listen. Is there beer? I can have beer. That whistle or Guinness. Or whatever you want. I'll see you there. But yeah, no, the room sounds unbelievable. I'll tell you, I've worked for years in the largest recording studios in this city. And this is the straightest room I've ever worked in. It is beautifully straight, right? And if I listen to Hans Zimmer's score from Dune, I mean, I can look on a spectral analyzer, and that score is active right down to 15, 16 hertz. And I am hearing
below 60 all the way down. It is so tidy. It's unbelievable.
It's cool.
Any other questions?
Probably. That was good to have a build. I like having a build part of this.
Yeah.
It's watching somebody else work is much more rewarding than actually doing work. So, it's kind of. We have Ryan McCambridge. Yeah. There's an R, McCambridge in the audience. Ryan is one of our Grammy nominated. Are you an AS member? Community members. Come on up here, Ryan. Okay, observations of the, you get to critique the group. Does this one work? Look at that. Oh, yeah. Here, I'll take the brighter one. You take the duller one. Ryan, come on in. Okay, hey, Ryan, you can have a seat. We'll bring the other panelists up here, So what were your impressions of the Atmos market? What's going on with you? What's going on with your world in this space?
So I suppose I got asked to do this like a couple days ago.
Yeah, he's got no presentation.
They're like, don't worry about it. And then everybody comes up with their flashy stuff. I've got this.
Sure.
So I've been a mixer for about 20 years now. I started out in sort of like low budget Canadian television and stuff like that. Kind of my work has always kind of gone back and forth between the post world and the music world because, hey. So basically, I've been really, really fortunate because I've sort of straddled the lines on both sides at fairly high levels. Basically, when it comes to immersive, I was kind of introduced to it initially because I'd been working in 5.1 on a lot of like television advertising, that kind of stuff. I was speaking at a panel down at NAM in 2020, right before the pandemic, and HBO came up to me afterwards, and we got talking, and there was the head of sound services for HBO, and they had been working on essentially going back through their catalog and doing completely remasters of all their old shows, both on the picture side where they'd go back to the negative, and on the audio side where it was decided that they were just going to, double down into Atmos to try and future-proof things so it wasn't channel-based and that kind of stuff. Something happened in early 2020 that changed the entire world, and basically HBO's studios shut down because it was like law. No one could go to the studios because of COVID, obviously. And I got a call that year from the person who I'd met, and they basically said, what are you doing for the next 6 months? We're really, really, really far behind on Sex and the City. We would love for you to come onto the team and help, mix it. And I was like, I've never worked in Atmos. I know what it is. Did
you work out of home for this? This is all out of home?
Yeah, I mean, I had my home studio, which was 5.1 at the time. I had basically negotiated with them to upgrade my studio.
Okay. Part of the deal.
Part of the deal.
More speakers, please.
Part of the deal. So yeah, I can totally appreciate the cost side of it. I was very, very, very fortunate that I got to milk Time Warner. So for me, it was trial by fire. It was literally just getting thrown in the deep end on one of the biggest shows of all time. And I was lucky because the HBO themselves were kind of like giving me the lay of the land. This is what we do, and I think most people in audio are pretty good at kind of like adapting. Either you're adapting to your client or you're adapting to the company you're working for or whatever it might be. So I sort of had to adjust my way of working to kind of adhere to HBO. And I just sort of ran with it, really. Like,
so did they give you like a style guide or
sort of?
Or,
I mean,
okay.
they basically gave me a few sessions.
Okay.
Sort of said like, here, like, listen, learn, go through it all.
Okay.
And I mean, ultimately, I mean, I don't know how many people here are mixers, but the hard part is like, you know, the 20 years of experience, right? It's just like hearing things, knowing things, like how you actually work. It's not like the mechanics of what goes where and stuff is you know, like it is, I'm not gonna say superfluous, but it's sort of like, you know, not the most important part. So they trusted me because of what I'd worked on in the past. And, you know, like I say to my own students, it's you know, 90% personality, right? It's just people. I always say, like, you know, how would I feel about being in a room with no windows for 16 hours a day with you, and that sort of dictates who gets a job.
So you're a Mac user, is that what you're saying? Small group. So they would just mail you hard drives. Like one day you'd wake up and there'd be like a big huge hard drive.
No.
Sex
They
and
have
the City season 1.
No, everything is done through
Some kind of Dropbox.
Yeah, and well, the what is it called? It'll come to me eventually. Media
secret.
Shuttle, those
Okay,
like sorts of
okay.
things, direct kind of peer-to-peer sort of stuff.
Okay.
You know, each episode was like 50 gigs or something.
So when you get that, like you're getting somebody else's previous work, right? You're dealing with stems when that comes in, or
You know,
are you starting from scratch? Did they give you some creative freedom to take these ambient scenes to a different level? What did they do?
It was like there was a lot. Basically you go back and they had printed their stems, but they were, because it was like such a successful show. I was in charge of doing the last season, which is season 6. Which is 24 episodes, half-hour episodes. And essentially they go back and they print out a bunch of stems, but because the show was so big at that point in time, they were really granular. You know, so we had an ADR stem, a dialogue stem, a backgrounds, like background, you know, dialogue stem. We had PFX, hard effects 1 and 2, Foley, and all of these are 5.1 too, by the way. So basically, like, it becomes a combination of chopping stuff up, you know, like there's an editorial side to that, like pulling things out, and so you can spatialize it and put it in certain places. But also, you know, a certain amount of up mixing for backgrounds, sometimes a bit of sound design. Sometimes, like, you know, if something wasn't quite filling up,
You embiggened sounds?
Embiggened it. Okay. Yeah, there is. I'm on another show for HBO right now, which I can't really discuss, but it's the same idea, that there are just moments that the kind of like philosophy is, if they could do this, if they could have done this, then would they have? that sort of like you want to keep the integrity of the show, you want to keep the overall spirit of it, but it's like certain things, you know, that they were under time constraints, you know, that they were really tried for, you know, like bandwidth. We all know, I mean, some people have worked in this industry for a really long time. We did not have the restoration tools.
Right.
I mean,
noise reduction.
Yeah, I mean,
cleaning.
particularly on Sex and the City, it was, you know, I mean, I have this really terrible joke that I've told 1,000 times, where I say I kind of wish that it was like, you know, Sex in the Quiet Library, because like the city is very much a part of the show. It's just so like persistent. I mean, it's more of a documentary. Like, it was shot more like a documentary, like, because they just were in New York, so it was freaking noisy. It was really noisy. So there's that thing where you say, okay, do you go and, you know, cedar the crap out of it, or RX it and do that kind of stuff? At what point are you pulling the spirit of the show out?
Do you lose the New York?
Yeah, exactly.
So now you have all this stuff at home, or in your home studio, or studio, or whatever you want to call it, place of business. You have a music background. Like, are some of your, you know, records of yesteryear starting to come back and get redone? Like, I've seen, you know, different studios again that mastered only for iTunes. That scares the hell out of me, actually. like that it has to be an Atmos thing? Are some of your, former records coming back to you?
Sort of. I mean, I'm kind of torn on the music side, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Because I actually, it was really strange, but because Sex and the City happened before Apple Music came out with Spatial, I was, but because I'm an engineer that kind of goes on both sides, I was kind of like at the forefront of it. So right after Sex and the City, I worked with a band called Mastodon, who I don't know the demographic here are actually quite large. They're rather successful, and so we did that record and we did it in stereo. But then that wrapped up in March of 2021, and then Apple came out in May, right, with Spatial. So all of a sudden, because they were on Atlantic, big major label, they're like, oh, we need this in Atmos. So my first like formal music Atmos project was Mastodon, which got a Grammy nomination, which was pretty cool. But the thing about that was, having worked on both the stereo and the Atmos side, I mean, I'm still partial to the stereo side of it.
So when it comes to music, the Grammy, is that like a surround category, or is it in a different performance category?
It was in a performance category.
Okay. Is there like, does anybody know? Can you get a Grammy in Atmos mixing?
There's now a spatial one.
Now
Yeah,
spatial audio.
It used to be It used to be like surround, and then they modified it to immersive.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, in sort of, I guess, directly to your question, I don't actually. I'm still undecided. It's funny because like I have an Atmos studio because I can lean on both the music side and on the post side. The experience of Atmos music, like to actually go into an Atmos studio and hear it, like really good stuff. It's powerful. It's very, very powerful. Atmos is interesting because it's I remember, I am old enough that I was around during 5.1 music, where you would release something on a DVD and they would do either concert stuff or like whatever. Right. The Eagles would come out with something. It was and it never really caught on because it relied on the average person having a 5.1 speaker system in their house, and that was impractical, particularly because from a consumption standpoint, basically it's this room of people who sit down and listen to records, as opposed to do dishes or walk their dogs or whatever they do while they're listening to music. So the interesting thing about this iteration of immersive music is at least it's a bit more accessible. Right.
Okay. Versus 5.1, where this is, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I have hope. I'm admittedly still skeptical on the musical side, which I mean, people pay me to do this,
Totally.
So it's a good revenue stream. But yeah, I think a lot has to go into the education side of it, where I think a lot of people still don't understand what it is and why. And I wish Justin was here because he is the master about this, but like explaining this stuff to my mother or like my wife, it's and you're like, no, go, and you pull down the menu and then you go and you've got to turn. No, yeah, it sounds weird because you're turning your head. Okay, turn that, like that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
we need to, well, we don't, but someone needs to figure that out, because even sending Atmos mixes to clients when I do music Atmos, it's painful. It's painful because
transportable. It's not transportable yet.
Well, you don't actually know what they're hearing.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. Like because one wrong button press, like if they have spatial enabled or not, they might not be hearing your mix. Right. So, and I mean, my entire world is basically, like Paul was saying, it was just like you're trying to find a reference and be like absolutely skilled at hearing things in a certain situation enough to be able to make a call as to how it's going to translate in a world outside your room. And then that literally gets thrown out the window when somebody doesn't press the space. Even just like as an example, because I mean, right now, the mechanism for delivering an Atmos mix to a client is you save it as an MP4. They may have gotten around this, but for a while it was like you had to zip it first and then iMessage it to someone, because it needed to open up an iMessage, which opened up in the Files app of the iPhone. Oh, and they needed to be on iPhone, right? And so Justin actually created a document which we all stole and used ourselves
on how to launch.
Yeah, just how to play it back. And so that's the hurdle at the moment. Is like, how do you send it in, because you can listen to something in binaural, anything, like you can just take a stereo, like your iPhone will take a stereo mix and make it spatial, but that's not an Atmos mix. Like that's just some sort of algorithm that they've created. And so you don't, as a mixer, you don't actually know, are they like, what are they listening to?
Very good point about, like the C chain, and this is where we got to bring the panel. Okay, come on, it's 9:11. Everybody, come on up here. We'll try to catch this off at quarter to 10. We'll get out of here. Oh, jeez, that's so we got a half hour here. Bring everybody up here. We'll share a bunch of microphones. Because I was thinking, and then we'll get some questions. So I'll run around with the microphone for questions, etc. Like you say, the QC chain, you can't possibly know what you're listening to it through. Like it's not very transferable, I guess. And again, haptics is the least transferable thing unless you have.
It's super interesting.
Super interesting. Okay, we have a first question over here. All right, here we go.
Just wondering, how can we as consumers, I guess, future-proof ourselves for Dolby Atmos, for us to be able to, one day listen to spatial audio today? Like if we wanted to do that a few months or a year from now?
I mean, I personally believe it's not your responsibility. I think that one of the problems, at least on the music side, is that you have Apple, who has their proprietary sauce of how something gets translated, versus Amazon, versus true binaural. There isn't a straight reference point at the moment, which is frustrating as a mixer, because like literally as a mixer, your life is a reference point. Like you just need a reference point. So having that moving target. So I think for the time being, there's not, to be honest, a lot, at least I don't think so, like that you can do yourself. I believe that this stuff will get ironed out. I know Dolby is really working hard to try and get it into they have a lot invested in it. So I think we'll see that stuff get streamlined, but yeah, I wouldn't go too far into that rabbit hole. At least that would be my kind of advice for a little bit. Let the dust settle a little more.
So is it worth students to invest into this, Finley? Again,
I think there'll be a phase. You remember when CDs came out, and then like 8 years later, they're like, hey, guess what? We remastered everything for CD again. I think we'll go through a number of those phases because it's such a wide canvas, right? In terms of what you can do in this immersive space. The technology is still figuring itself out, particularly in terms of like that last mile in terms of getting it to the consumers. So yeah.
Sorry, I'd also say that that's more on the music side. Like I think on the film and television side, it's a lot more ironed out.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's been in cinemas for so long. And
so yeah, you said television. You got my ears perked up. Okay, how many TV stations are like broadcasting Atmos? Like, is there any TV over the air in Atmos? ATSC3? Is there a single ATSC3? We had a SMPTE meeting about that. Ron's nodding his head yes, so he agrees with my comment. I think. Paul, you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, with regards to your question about how do we even the playing field in music, I mean, let's understand that Sony 360 is a really viable format. And many people actually say it's a better format than Atmos. But, you know, just remember what happened for those of you who can between Beta and VHS. Beta was a better format, but VHS won because of the pornography industry.
It's always
So
haptics.
you know,
again, you say
but
the surround sound. It's all going to be adult
the
industry.
the thing that I think is really important to recognize is that Apple has a crackerjack audio team. I mean, they've got the best people on the planet under that roof, and they are constantly working on the integration with iOS, OS, Apple TV. You know, the interesting thing about Apple TV, when I watch TV shows on Apple TV, I find that center dialogue channel oftentimes is mixed too low, and I actually have to increase the volume of my home receiver. I have a 5.1 system, but I have to increase the volume of Apple mixes by about 4 or 5 dB compared to what I do from Netflix or from Amazon Prime. So you find that too? You know, so it's we've never ever had consistency in the audio world. Ever, because, you know, even if you mix in stereo, somebody is going to have their speaker system on top of the fridge and the other one over there. So you never know what people are going to get. But I will say this, that I've been working with Virtuoso, this binaural renderer that has come out of Huddersfield University. Hein Cook Lee and his team have made this. And the thing that I think is fascinating is that you can take an Atmos mix and you can shove that through audio movers binaurally. You can basically stream on Zoom in binaural audio with that being your primary output. And the thing that I found fascinating about that binaural renderer was that the settings, there's 3 HRTFs, so you can set it to whatever is best for you. I was able to actually mimic the RT60 and many of the other traits of my tiny studio in the binaural renderer, so that I had a very consistent experience moving from discrete speakers to binaural. And the crosstalk or the cross feed is very, very good. And I think for anybody who is listening to a binaural mix, and this is something that I tell my clients, shut your eyes. Because when you turn off that part of the brain that is feeding visual stimulus to us, all of a sudden, the perception of spatial qualities through head-related transfer function, you know, interaural, spectral differences, timing delays, all of that stuff now becomes so much more believable when your eyes are turned off. So for everybody who's listening binaurally, turn your eyes off or shut your eyes off and just listen. And it's a better experience.
This is a SMPTE event. So.
Oh, yeah, right.
Let me just remind that this is a joint event with SMPTE.
It's about perception of audio.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Questions? Yeah, hey, we got a question in the back here. Let me get that mic to you.
Back to future-proofing from the other end, from the production end. Say you're mixing for a band and stereo, as I do, and I want to future-proof to go into this world of you know, multi-track, Atmos, etc. How many stems would I need to do to future-proof a mix? Like, are you pulling apart all the instruments, or, you know, grouping guitars and such?
There's a couple ways of doing it. I don't do this. So just so we're all on the same page, the Dolby renderer, the Dolby production suite is $200, something like that. And they've made that bar pretty low so that anybody who has a system like a DAW of some sort could, you know, pipe into the renderer, listen on headphones do it binaurally, you can actually do Atmos for pretty cheap, like all things considered. So I know, I don't know how many people know John Beetle Bailey. So I know John he's mixing all in Atmos in stereo. So in other words, like he does the ecosystem. He works within the Atmos ecosystem to mix stereo, but he always has his Atmos. Do you know what I mean? Like it's always ready. So that's one way of doing it. And for anybody who is flipping back and forth a lot, because like right now for myself, if I mix in stereo, that is literally a different session from me mixing in Atmos, which is a huge pain. So that's one way of doing it. If you want to break it down, like say if someone is sending to me to mix in Atmos, the more granular, the better. The way in which I prefer is essentially the multi-track with printed effects, if possible. There are ways of doing that aren't as painful as it sounds. I've recently got really into SoundFlow. Any SoundFlow people around here, other than Aiden? SoundFlow is deep integration into Pro Tools, and it helps with automation and stuff like that for those kinds of tasks. But to be honest, it totally varies. It could be anything from like drums, bass, guitars, keys, vocals, B vocals, to a multi-track. But the more granular, if you're actually trying to archive and do like a good job of it, go down as granular as it makes sense and print your effects separately would be my suggestion.
So I got a question to add to that. So, when stereo was hip, when it was hip to go stereo, we would do like stereo pairs of things, right? You do a stereo pair here and a stereo pair here. In newer recording sessions, are people putting like 5.1 flowers? Are you using multi-channel microphones? Is there like a renaissance of that type of technology coming through? Maybe to ask his question a little bit differently, like, would you record extra things you're just going to throw away just for the sake of archiving space that you're in for the
Some
future?
people do. I know Chad Blake has been using the Neumann binaural head for a million years. So I mean that stuff has been baked in for a long time. But yeah, I mean, I think that's probably more on the classical and jazz side than the pop side. But
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, when you're recording, maybe in the new student realm of things, like, are you insisting that like while you have a lead vocal microphone, a backup microphone, are you shooting surround sounds? Are you encouraging 5.1 cameras? Maybe that's a question for Finn. Or are we just still stuck in the audio sucks phase and it's hard to do, so we still get one channel and that's good enough if that's all we got, kind of thing?
So one thing I will add to that is just that localizing things often relies on things being mono.
Sorry, localizing things.
The placement of it within space tends to work better if it starts as a mono object. Okay. So once you're recording in some sort of a deca tree or something like that, it's pinned to wherever it's gonna.
Okay, yeah,
go, right?
that you have to carry over those placements too as you move that sound source.
Yeah, it sort of ties your hands a bit.
Ties your hands to it.
It's one of the nice things about ambisonics, and one of the reasons it's part of the curriculum is that the students can go out and capture with a first order or second order microphone, so you can capture the scene as that sphere of sound, whereas Atmos is really driven from the post-production experience, taking monophonic sources, perhaps with the stereo image, maybe getting up to something that has 5 channels, and then placing it around. But the beauty of ambisonics is you can capture that sphere practically in the field, just as you would with a mid-side microphone.
So there are a lot of cameras. Go.
I'd build on that. And does anybody know about Morten Lindberg's work at 2L? Now, Morten has built discrete 7.0.4 microphone arrays. And his whole catalog with his record label is all what I would call native Atmos. I mean, it's not built in the post-production world. It's built natively, and he records that way. As a matter of fact, you can go onto Apple Music, and with your binaural Apple spatial headphones, you can find a channel identification file from Morton. It's fascinating because he was in a sanctuary of a church where what he did is he had the whole array up, and I swear that what he did is he walked up to each microphone and said, left, center, right, and you hear the spatiality of his voice in all the other microphones. It's one of the best examples of native spatial sound that's actually captured in Atmos. So the world of ambisonic can live right beside that native Atmos capture too. So it's just such a flexible format,
Okay. So then there's two types of surround sounds. There's sounds of spaces that, like you say, that would be an array stuck in like a fixed Atmos position. And then there's sounds that move that are preferred to be mono. I can't think of a natural stereo source. Like, what sound is naturally stereo?
Well, everything
Everything.
Everything you hear in a certain way. I'm like, think of it this way. Every sound without spatiality is mono.
Good.
Every sound is mono without any spatiality. And let's call that a denatured sound, right? When you add spatiality, you're now adding nature to the sound, which is what we hear. And that is a really great way to think of direct sound versus the spatiality.
Yeah, I have a two-part questions. We mostly talked about Atmos, not DTSX or RO3D. Is that because Atmos is more popular than the other versions? And the second question, what suggestions do you have for students or beginners who wants to dive deeper into learning more about immersive audio like Atmos?
Anybody want to go on that?
Regarding the formats, I know for myself, it's literally just what's asked of me from clients or the companies that I work for. Dolby, they've went so strong into that space that they really are, I think, the forerunner of it, probably by a lot, I would guess. My understanding of Oro is that it's still channel based. Am I right on that? Yeah, I think so. So the idea of getting away from channel based audio and into object based audio is a huge jump in compatibility, which is something that, like, back in the completely channel based days, having to print out tons and tons and tons of stems of different formats for different languages, it's so much easier just to have something that's a bit more agnostic, which is what basically object-based audio is done. In terms of the second half, I personally, I think that understanding the ecosystem from when you're starting out, the reality is like, you're not likely going to be making a lot of the kind of executive sound decisions for when you're straight out of school. But you're going to be asked to operate things. You're going to be asked to fix things and route things and, work within the environment. And that's pretty accessible. Most of the studios, well, I'm going to say all of the studios that I know and work in Pro Tools, in Dolby Atmos. And, like I said earlier, Dolby Production Suite is a couple $100. If you can pair, what is it? Is it Studio now? Avid Studio is the middle tier, does Atmos. With that, with the Dolby Production Suite, you have all the tools to learn the entire mechanics and the workflow of everything for fairly minimal cost on a set of headphones. To scale up to even what you were talking about is $49,000 more. You know, so and if in starting out, I would say, like, you know, Pro Tools, the Dolby Atmos production suite, set of headphones, and just mess around, learn the mechanics. Because to be honest, the hardest part about Atmos isn't the, oh cool, this is up here, we're gonna throw this here. It's the, what happened to the 127th object? You know, like it's there's so much to manage from a routing standpoint. So make yourself a good assistant is the.
In terms of music production, you know, we gotta acknowledge Apple again for Logic, for building, you know, the renderer right in. Nuendo, same sort of thing. And I believe, there's a couple others that have renderers built in. And the skinny on the street is that we're going to see this in Pro Tools really soon. It's just, I think, that's what I've heard. Yeah, I haven't actually downloaded that version yet.
I'm not allowed upgrading.
I'm just going to start a rumor that Dolby bought Avid. There, you heard it here. Dolby bought Avid. I heard it at a SMPTE event. Any other questions? Here, let's go around. Yeah, here, let's go.
So with Dolby Atmos, because you're kind of creating more dynamics in your mix, where does the loudness war play into that?
Oh, it's gone in a certain way. I mean, you really have to stay legal. You know, you can't cross -1 in terms of your peak, and you have to mix to a loudness, you know, LKUFS or whatever it is, to -18. You have to stay legal with that. So everything technically is supposed to be at the same level. But, you know, it's interesting how everybody uses compressors. I mean, you don't have to use all that dynamic range. You can still make loud mixes sound loud. So, and in the same way, you don't have to use every channel too. I see a lot of Atmos stuff where, you know, even some of Morten Lindberg's stuff, he doesn't use the heights for a whole record. He just leaves them off. I don't know why, but he decided not to. Or there are a lot of other mixes that I see where LFE is not used at all. Center channel is not used. There was a recent mix that I looked at recently of a solo bassist, which is close to my heart. Bottom line is the mixing engineer did something fascinating that I've never seen in another mix. And he had staged the bass primarily in the center channel and used everything else for spatiality. And he used the LFE strongly. It was fantastic. I got to say, it was a really novel way to use the channelization of Atmos. So it really comes down to, you know, what it is that you want to do with your dynamic range, what it is you want to do with your spatiality. It's a very liberating format to work in a certain way. Very exciting.
So in that vein, like from a creative point of view, like from sound stages, like is it much more fun to create like sound stages in that type of environment compared to like a standard binaural environment? Like, explain maybe the benefits of working with multi-channel opposed to just dealing with.
Well, let's assume everybody here has heard Rocket Man, you know, in terms of the stereo mix versus the Atmos mix. I don't know if you have. If you haven't, it's something you've got to hear. I played it in my studio for a few people, and the first thing they said is, I never knew what that song was really about. So I would argue that with 360-degree spatiality, mixing engineers, we have the ability now to change the meaning of the song. We can put emphasis on certain things. Like in Rocket Man, when that slide guitar comes in, that sound is reserved only for the upper height channels. The vocals are predominantly in the sides and the rears, but the basic sound stage of the band sits in the LCR. And with Rocket Man, I perceive that Greg Penny and Brian Pennington, they mixed that in one day. I perceive that what they did is they viewed the stems, if you will. I think they created zones, you know, and they really worked with a zonal approach to the song meaning. And so when you start to look at Atmos mixes in this way and see the way engineers, to what degree they use the heights, and all you have to do is look at the levels, you know, and you can see what is truly reading as an immersive, meaningful experience. Or some mixes, they just kind of tippy-toe around in the spatiality, and you wonder, well, why it doesn't read as spatial. I think it's really...
Well, I just want to echo the third eye, intelligibility, right? Like you said, like, you know, like that intelligibility is much different. You know, 500 things coming out of that one speaker is a lot different than 500 speakers with one thing in each one of it. So that intelligibility thing, I think, is right there. Sorry, go on.
Your clients. That's I mean, that's kind of like who dictates everything, right? Like so when I started working in 5.1 in television, then but in music, I came at it from like concert side of things. I worked with I don't know if anybody knows David Bottrell, but I worked with David for many years, and we did a Rush R40 big concert, you know, thing. It took us, I don't know, 6 months or something like that. But David and I sat down before we started the project, and we literally went out and bought all these concert DVDs and listened to how it was presented, and decided we were trying to decide the philosophy for the project. And you say, okay, am I an audience member or am I like on the stage? And we decided really early on for all the live work that we did that we wanted to be audience members. So essentially the wraparound is audience for the most part, and the band is coming here. That same sort of philosophy is, I think, where there's a divide, is are you a spectator to the music or are you in the music?
Totally.
And the problem with it is that when it gets, because again, it's an agnostic format that can get folded down into binaural or even stereo. At that point, it can't be completely different from the actual stereo mix. That is the biggest challenge, is sort of, you have to be able to still have it represented as something that sounds like the original stereo mix. I mean, all that goes out the window if the intention is that it was supposed to be in Atmos, you know, and that there is no stereo mix or whatever new sort of generation we're in. But I know in the early days, that was what was handcuffing us, was just sort of saying, like, because in my Pro Tools session, I would literally have the stereo master, you'd solo it, you'd go to your Atmos, be like, am I getting the same impression of this song? But you listen to the Rocket Man one, the one from the band. I've heard, like, there's one from Tiesto where it's just going everywhere and stuff. Like, yeah. It's awesome. It's really, really awesome. But I don't know that it's representative of the stereo mix, which is still considered to be like the gold standard.
I collect those records they used to sell in like the 70s and probably 60s, where it was like stereo test records. We're still in the stereo test record phase of Dolby Atmos.
Yeah, well, one thing I'd add, just to the point about, you know, the creativity in these spatial mixes, is as we go through the arc from students when they're first creating their first dramatic narrative spaces, so we do something akin to a radio drama, we create these diegetic story spaces, and there's a real challenge to place all of the actors on the stage, give them a position, but then also give them depth in terms of amplitude, reflections, reverb. As we move through to surround and then to ambisonics and then as the game engines, that becomes easier and easier and easier and easier as you go, ending up in the game engine space where I place the thing here in a room that looks like this. It sounds, it has that spatial simulation that's very automatic. The beautiful thing about that is you can then change the perspective on the fly. You can say, what if I was behind this? What if I was in a different part of this room? And you can really actively engage with that in a creative way that would be impossibly painful if you were working in a stereo context.
Yeah, we got a question here.
One question, maybe two, but the first one is, anybody experience AI mixing Dolby Atmos?
It's coming for us all.
It's coming, but nobody heard anything yet?
My personal feeling on that is AI mixers interpret human context, and AI, as great as it's going to be, I think we'll have assistive tools, but and more than likely there's going to be somebody that has some sort of an AI engine that is able to assert prominence to like an A and a B, C level of performance, meaning vocals, harmony, drums, whatever, and maybe theoretically do that through levels. But I don't know. I don't see that an artificial intelligence mix algorithm is going to be able to do what we do here, which is interpret human context.
Maybe not yet, but after reviewing like 5,000 mix, maybe it'll be good.
Well, to be honest, I have strong feelings about this in general, but I don't think that the problem is going to be the technology. I mean, Isotope's doing great things. Like there are software that's doing that. It's actually the other side of things. It's the expectations of stuff where you end up being a source for someone to essentially look to you to say, oh, is this good? And if you take out that middleman, you're sort of saying, okay, someone like the client they don't generally have that kind of, they want that safety net for one. And also too, like, good luck AI dealing with my client revisions. like that robot can have that all they want.
So I have another question regarding, because we're talking about cinema and immersive and Dolby, but lately we're having our rule regulation about level, and no cinema is the same. It's always too loud or not loud enough, or the center channel is bad. But the question is do you think Dolby, we're gonna have an automatic AZ10, 10 AZ or LEQ to stabilize all the levels in a motion picture from Dolby? That's
it's a big problem. Like loudness in post is a big problem. Particularly like on the cinema side. I don't do a lot of cinema, but my friends who do. I mean, it'd be really nice if there was like a kind of like a broadcast standard, like we have in on the broadcast side of things, where they could just say the anchor dialogue is this LKFS, end of story. That would be great. Yeah.
May I just say my understanding here too, and I can't really be too specific, but I got this on pretty good advice or pretty good sort of feedback, is that the way cinemas around the world maintain their equipment and basically keep their systems calibrated is a giant part of this equation. And so because of the costs of that, these are expensive systems. So even if we did have that standard, that you would really go, okay, this is like we have in broadcast with -24, or in music -18. In cinema, the unknown is what's going to be happening at the actual location where that playback happens. And it could be as simple as the cleaning staff forgetting to, or knocking the power switch off on the power amp for all of the heights or something like that,
it's funny because in Justin's video, he mentioned going in and messing around with the
settings of
the processor, the Dolby processor. And he was like, they weren't very happy. And I'm like,
Yeah, no
fucking
kidding.
shit.
No kidding.
Well, it's because it was not done right. I know.
That's how you lose fingers. Folks, we're going to wrap it up here. I got the wrap it up sign. 3 brewers afterwards if you're having a beer. Not that you need one, but if you want 4 or 5, they're there for you. Thank you, folks, to the panel. Your insights have just been fantastic. Your industry stories, thank you.
Great. I really learned a lot.
Thank you.
This was a hybrid meeting brought to you by SMPTE and the AES. Do you want me to hand it off? Thank you. I've been Anthony. I will still be Anthony at the end of this. Cheers. Go to torontoaes.org to get any information. You do not have to pay to be on our newsletter for the Toronto AES. It's free for life, and we don't delete subscribers to our newsletter. So please go to the website, subscribe. It costs nothing to come to our events. They're open to all students. So please, thank you very much for coming. Thank you, professors, for bringing your students out. Of course, it's very important to that. And thanks to our presenters. Cheers. Thank you very much.